Well, we're here with Jim Gamber from Lomanco. Jim and I go way back, over a decade ago, from his work at ICO. We first met. Jim, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yep, I'm here with Lomanco now. Been in this industry, in the industry as a whole, for going on 32 years. Did my first 20 years in distribution, from selling shingles and windows and decking to management and branches, and then went back into sales. And then, I say 20 years, I made it 19 years and 8 months, and then I went to work for ICO. I was a shingle rep for Maryland and Virginia for almost 7 years, and then it's been 7 years here at Lomanco. And it's one of those things, and I'm sure you can attest to this. We get out and start doing this and working and building relationships, and then it's almost like you don't want to leave. It's kind of like moving. Why would I want to move out of this neighborhood? I got new neighbors. I love these guys. Love these guys. So yeah, that's pretty much my history.
Once the roofing industry grabs you, it doesn't let go.
Oh no, it's like it's an evil web. Once you're in it, you're in it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great. And the funny thing is now is I pretty much started around the D.C. Baltimore market, Northern Virginia. And then now I cover 6 states in the Mid-Atlantic. So I could be up in Long Island, New York, and I'll seem like I run into somebody that I've known or met in the industry down here. So it's like no matter where I travel, I feel like I run into somebody that we've crossed paths along the way somewhere. So it's great. It's a great industry. I've got guys that used to work almost shoulder to shoulder with me. Now they're some of my biggest customers, or run multi-billion-dollar companies now, and it's a great industry. It's been a great time.
So what got you into the asphalt shingle business at ICO?
I don't know if you ever, there was a Certainty shingle rep that used to be around, Dennis Brilliant. He's now with Eagle View.
I know Dennis. Yeah, he's our Eagle View rep.
Yep, so he used to be my shingle rep. Did a lot of meetings with him. He lived up in northern Baltimore County, so when I was up that way, him and I would do stuff together, and we were actually at an Orioles game one day, and I just left the operations side of distribution and went to the sales side of distribution. And we were at an Orioles game. Just, if you know how Dennis is, we were just yapping. And he looks at me and he says, "Jim, how do you like being in sales now?" I'm like, Dennis, I like it. Don't feel like I'm babysitting really. And he's like, "Well, let me tell you the difference between what I do and what you do." He goes, "Every morning you get up and you look yourself in the mirror and you say, I've got to sell roofing, siding, windows, doors, and decking." He goes, "I get up every morning, look myself in the mirror and says, I got to sell asphalt shingles today." And I got thinking, I'm like, man, that's so cool to kind of maybe have those blinders in that. And when I made the honest decision, that's what I want to do. I wanted to wait until 20 years because then my daughter was older. There's more traveling, there's bigger territory generally. And when I did it, it was awesome. It's a little different, I guess, because you're used to selling all those different widgets to sell. Mm-hmm. And then you go to being streamlined, blinders on, selling asphalt shingles. But that's just kind of why I made the decision, just talking, wanted to get into the manufacturer side, but I wanted to wait till my daughter was older because there's traveling involved, and loved it. Did great. There wasn't a big presence in this market when I took it over, and made some very good leaps and bounds in distribution, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then I went to Lomanco 7 years later.
That's awesome. Well, I vividly remember working with you when you were at ICO, and you introducing us to John DeRosa.
Yep.
At the Best of Success, meeting him, having that contractor roundtable.
Yes, or yes.
All the stuff you did for us has been amazing over the years. So when you moved on to Lomanco, it was great because, I don't think we were really familiar with Lomanco until you moved over, and the information that you provided us with, about the products and education with ventilation in general has been amazing. So, that's why we wanted to invite you here, get a little bit about your backstory, and then talk about ventilation. Insulation and ventilation are both equally important. Absolutely. In the attic, right? I guess we can start with just ventilation in general. Like, why is it important for a roof? And, why do so many people care about ventilation? And why do so many people, are they not aware of it?
Honestly, it's education is the biggest thing. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about Lomanco and kind of what we do, way we go to business. We make a great product. We're a family-owned company, been in business since 1946. The easiest way to think about it is we wake up every morning, think about ventilation. We go to bed every night, think about ventilation. That's what we do, and we do it good. But what I really enjoy is the biggest part of my job is the education side of it, the seminar like you saw today, bringing the smokehouse and the convection house and educating teams. Because, you're right. We didn't have maybe a brushstroke or whatever you want to say about Lomanco, but when I came here, I learned a ton. After being 25 years or whatever in the industry, I thought I'm a cocky guy. I got it licked. I understand this, and then going there and doing the plant tour and spending the time down there getting educated, it's eye opening of what ventilation is. And we all think we understand how important it is, but when you see different little tools and what needs to happen to have the roof ventilate properly, it's eye opening. And that's where my office wants us to do, and this is what all of us area market managers do all the time, is doing this education, is learning, because we want you to contractors to understand how ventilation works and be able to talk about it, have some knowledge about it, talk about it in the home. Because when you're to sell a roof, you're there to fix a problem. Yes, it could be weather, it could be a weather issue, but generally it's because the roof's failing. In this market, it's usually not enough intake in the ventilation side of it. So if we're able to educate and teach you guys how to do that and speak knowledge, we go into the home and show the homeowner, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, this is the problem. Here's what we're going to do to solve it. This is, what caused it. It's how we're going to fix it. That's a win at that point. I don't want you to change anything you do. Go inside the home, sell yourself, sell your business. That's what you should be doing. My challenge is just spend 3 to 5 minutes talking about ventilation, some of the fancy words that they'll hear, Bernoulli Effect, stack height, things like that, during the seminar in your in-home presentation. Because then not only you're solving the problem, you're showing the homeowner why the problem's there. Mm-hmm. And educating them. You're differentiating yourself from your competitors.
Yeah. Knowing about ventilation, it separates the great contractors from the good contractors,
Absolutely.
In my opinion. And that's how we earn a lot of our business, by educating homeowners on proper ventilation. And in the seminar today, we didn't even talk about bathroom vents and how they can sometimes be vented in the soffit or ridge vents, and how they should really have their own dedicated ductwork going outside the roof.
Out to the roof, yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we didn't show all the pictures today. There's actual videos where people are just dumping like bathroom vents straight into the attic.
Yeah.
We've heard people take them and just dump them to the soffits. Well, that's just taking all that moisture and pulling it, if the roof is ventilated, pulling it right back into the attic space. So it's the whole education side is what what we like to do. We definitely have all of the premium products that are out there. Got anything that's needed to ventilate the foundation or the roof of the house, we manufacture. So if we can get out and educate of how to sell the products and how to understand them and how to become that problem solver on the job site, it's the reason it's a family-owned business, been a business since 1946. We've got great ownership, we've got great leadership, and it's fun. It's fun.
So 1946, what is like the general history of ventilation and awareness? Because, we didn't always pay attention to ventilation when we were building houses, right?
How we got our start is actually that 900 series, that adjustable gable louver. The grandfather of our current owners, Clark Belden, he was pretty much an engineer. He designed a special design on a fishing lure, a conduit cutter for electricians, and then he came up with a 900 series, our adjustable gable louver. And the way that I understand it, the way that happened is he had somebody he'd been talking to that had had been talking about maybe complaining a little bit and not being able to get that get a louver that fit all the variable pitches of roofs that they would work on. So he came up with that 900 series. It's actually in the Minnesota location, and made that, and that's how we got started.
Huh.
When he came up, it's a funny little story. When he came up with that product, he wound up naming the company Dandy Manufacturing, because this person had said, that's a dandy product you came up with. So it became Dandy Manufacturing, and then later it became Louver Manufacturing Company, and then we just shortened it down to Lomanco. But that's how we got our start, and it's a great story. Today, if I don't think you've ever got to meet Ted or Dennis, our owners, yet. It's a great, great, great family. They're great to work for. They're always behind us, sales guys out on the road. I can pick up a phone now and call him, and he would answer. It's that type of good family atmosphere, and they're very proud of what their family's done over the years.
That's awesome.
As well am I.
And they understand the importance of intake and exhaust and balancing the system and all that back in the day?
Back then, no. And to be honest with you, I'd have to look into it to see probably when that really got big. I will tell you that the seminar that you saw today, we do an AIA accredited class, for architects continuing education. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't long after I started with Lomanco. I had a group of, it was like about 6 or 8 architects in a room, and went through the whole seminar with them. And when I do it for architects, it's a little different. We don't talk product. I don't talk anything Lomanco until we're all done. That's all part of their education, the way we got to handle it for AIA. When I was done, one of the architects came up to me, and he was probably the oldest one in the room. And he goes, Jim, that's very interesting. He goes, when ventilation went wrong? And I just kind of looked at him. I'm like, no, what do you mean? He goes, if you think about it, doing oil embargoes, everything started being built tighter and tighter. So we started having issues with homes because they're trying to save. Our houses started being built tighter.
Was that in the 70s?
Yeah, in the 70s,
okay.
Mid-70s. That's when we start seeing issues. So if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. That at that point, if you look back of, some of the early ventilation products we see on the market, some of them are still out in the field today. It's almost the concept of, hey, let's ventilate a roof. All we got to do is cut a hole in the attic, hot air rises, and it gets out. Well, we know now that's just the very tip of it. We got to have proper ventilation, got to have a balanced system with intake and exhaust. So it's eye-opening to see that. And as him and I talked a little bit further, he just kind of opened my eyes to how important some of that is. And one of the things that in our chatting that we came up with, where I live in Southern Maryland, there's a lot of tobacco barns still down there. And the way I like to think about it is you go into the DC, Northern Virginia market where there's shake work. If you put a shake on a roof that doesn't have a cedar breather or something underneath of it, it doesn't take long for that shake to pretty much disintegrate, start just drying out.
Yeah.
But if you come down to Southern Maryland, like where I live, and go to some of those old tobacco barns, there's shakes that have been up there 50 plus years. But when you walk into that barn, you look up, it's open purlings, it's completely breathing the whole time.
Yep.
So it kind of makes sense. It really makes you, different conversations we'll have in industry and things that I've run into, it really makes you really kind of visualize and close the gap of understanding what ventilation is. And that's why, like we just talked about, the education side of it is the most important part. We all think that, we're selling XYZ shingles and we're doing the systems or whatever, we're using the products, we're doing it right. It's not always the case. There's some education there, and that's where I like to help, because if I can come out and educate, then I can help, my customers like yourself win more jobs. Educate homeowners, close more deals, be the pro on the street. It's the best thing. If you can go out and be that pro on the street, answering the questions. If I'm able to answer the question that you and your team needs, that makes us all better at that point. So it's continuing learning. We're always going to learn. I could leave here today and learn something on the way up the road just by talking to another contractor or somebody else in the market. And that is one good thing with this market is it's not one of those things, especially on the manufacturing side. We all talk. Even if we're competitors, we'll see each other at a show and get to see what they do and, talk to some of their customers. You might not use my product on everything, but the next guy, then we start talking like, oh, that makes sense. It makes perfect sense how that doesn't work. So it's always learning, continuing learning.
Nice. So things got a little tighter in the 70s with the oil embargo and just people trying to close up their houses, save energy. Yep. And then the need for ventilation really occurred after that point in time, right? Because before, things were pretty leaky.
Yeah.
Everything was naturally vented
built
because
loose.
There wasn't a lot of insulation, loose, not tight.
Yeah.
So what happened in the 70s and the 80s? Like, what was the start to ventilation? Do you know?
I can't give a good answer for that. I personally don't know. I mean, my feeling and guess is as things started being built tighter and tighter, that's when we start finding more issues. They're starting to find mold and mildew, and
that's when vapor barriers on the outside of the house
things like that
right?
start happening. It's one of those things, and you saw some of it in the education today in the seminar. And that's we try to give guys things to look for in the home to know, point them in the right direction of what's possibly failing on the ventilation. And that's in my opinion, I think there's enough exhaust ventilation on the market or focus in the market. I'm starting to see a big swing on the intake side of it. That's really becoming the number one. I know products wise moving in my market, the biggest growth has been on the intake side.
Is that just because of awareness and education?
Oh, exactly. Awareness. I mean, the deck air product like you saw today, that's it's one of the biggest movers in my market. And I get more and more people that are asking, just in general conversation, talking about something else, they'll ask about intake. So I can see the awareness is getting there. They're starting to ask the questions and try to figure it out because it's It's the number one issue right now. And in the 6 states that I cover, it's intake is the issue.
Yeah, well, you made that very clear today. And yeah, I think there has always been a lot of focus on exhaust venting, ridge vents, gable vents, attic fans, but not a lot of intake, and until I guess it was Smart Vent that came out with their
Yep.
Edge Vent product, everyone just assumed that it was going to be taken care of by the soffit vents. That was the only form of ventilation at the
Absolutely.
time.
Yep.
And, what can you do if there's no overhang? What can you do if there's no form of ventilation at the soffit? It is what it is. And you just got to put a ridge vent or a gable vent or do whatever you can up on there to vent the
Vent it,
attic.
exactly.
Right. But then they didn't understand that you need intake to come into the attic and then the exhaust to pull it out.
Yep. And if you think about it too, if it's not done properly from the get-go, so from new construction, if you don't have proper exhaust and proper intake, that roof is not going to perform correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you have a home in 20 years, you have a roof failure, you need to get the roof replaced. So they hire a contractor to come out to the roof. The contractor doesn't know what soffit's there. He doesn't know if it's got proper intake. It's not very often that you're going to get a roof and you're going to get a roof and a siding job out of it. Usually you're there to fix a roof.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can show guys how to do that math, how to figure out their intake side of it, and let's be honest, I ask guys all the time. I say, "Hey, you got a roofing crew?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you have a siding crew?" "Oh, yeah, absolutely." I'm like, "Well, do you want your siding crew doing roofing?" "No, absolutely not." "Do you want your roofing guy doing soffit and siding work?" "Absolutely not." So if we're able to educate them and understand how things can fail on the roof with ventilation, not having adequate exhaust and intake, and now we can give them a product that's done on the roof where they're going to be working anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's a win-win for everybody at that point.
And
Because now you're able to get the job done on one facet on the roof scope, not have to worry about the siding, soffit, anything like that, unless it needs to be repaired. And the homeowner's getting a properly ventilated roof where they're not going to have failure from mold, mildew, overheat, things like that.
yeah. Now, if there are blocked soffit vents or the soffit's just not vented, there's no overhang. I mean, theoretically, you take care of the roof, put the edge vent down to act as intake. Even if you were able to come back and ventilate that soffit at a later date, it wouldn't matter that much because it's always better to have more intake than
Absolutely. It's always going to be better to be over on the intake. If we do the math and figure out the number, let's just say it's 5 and 5, that we need 5 exhaust and 5 intake, and we have 5 exhaust and it's 700 on intake, it's always better to be over on intake. Because if you were to have 5 on the intake and 1,000 on the exhaust, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you're moving any more air, because you're only going to be able to exhaust out what you're able to take in.
Yep.
So if you're ever going to be over on anything, it's always better to be over on intake.
Yeah, that's interesting because, in our market, a lot of the houses that were built, they weren't built taking into consideration ventilation, like you said, from new construction. And there are limitations to how much intake and exhaust we can install.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go through the calculator, sometimes we get hung up on, man, like I can't put enough intake on this house the way it's built to satisfy these requirements. So a lot of, I guess the rule of thumb, and correct me if this is wrong, the way we think about it is the rule of thumb is just to try to get as much intake in those scenarios as you can. Use the edge vent product, the deck air product at the bottom of the roof, and then just try to stick to one form of exhaust. Don't short circuit with multiple forms like a ridge vent plus a gable vent plus an attic fan plus a turbine or anything like that. But it does become interesting when you have a hip roof and there's not a long stretch of ridge at the top of that roof, because then you start to rattle your brain like, what do I do now? Even if you have ample amounts of perimeter deck air intake installed, what do I do to exhaust this out of the attic at that point in time?
Usually if you don't have enough length in the ridge to exhaust it, the best things to go to would be a power fan or solar fan or a turbine. Mm-hmm. I like turbines. We call them, it's our whirly bird. With ours, they have forever warranties. So it doesn't matter if 40 years from now there's an issue, it's still going to be under warranty. There's no electric that needs to be run to it. Mm-hmm. Those are our 1 and 2 go-tos.
Really? So the turbine is number 2?
For a hip roof, it's power fan or turbine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and talking for a hip roof.
Well, what the power fan, does Lomanco do a solar attic fan?
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the solar attic fan. So I don't like running electrical. I don't like having something active when it can be passive or powered by the sun.
Exactly. And that's a good thing with it. That's additional cost. Depending where you're working, it's got to be hooked up by an electrician. So there's
But you get a
more
30% tax
involved.
credit. You get tax credits on the solar.
Exactly.
And you can do the whole installation of
Yeah,
that.
our solar fan, actually, even our solar panel doesn't hard attach to the top. So you can actually have the solar panel on the back side of the roof if you need
where
to
it
be
makes sense.
Exactly.
South facing.
Exactly.
Excellent.
So it's funny. We do a decent amount of solar fans. It seemed like when the heavy energy credits were out there, it seemed to be more.
They're heavy again.
But I don't see as much anymore, as much as we did with heavy credits, I guess.
Jim, you could sell more solar attic fans. I'm telling you.
I would love to learn because I don't. I would love to learn that market.
Well, 30% tax credit is back from the Inflation Reduction Act. So you get 30% off the materials, the labor to install it. And look, the shingles around that attic fan include part of that project, right? I'm not saying you go crazy and do the whole slope maybe, but it can be a sizable portion of that section of roof, and you can apply 30% to that so you can reduce the out-of-pocket costs of the homeowner just by doing a solar attic fan.
How many are you doing it all on hip roofs mainly, or where are you?
Yeah, hip roofs, or if there's already an attic fan and the homeowner's dead set, hey, I want that, and it's all right, fine, we'll delete out the ridge vent, gable vents, whatever form of exhaust you have. We'll swap out your attic fan with a solar attic fan, and we'll apply the 30% tax credit to that project.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I know you guys do a ton of solar, huh?
You didn't even have to drive up, and drive up north to Philly to learn something today.
Yeah, see, I could coast the rest of the day.
Exactly. There's your nugget.
We could do happy hour. It's a win-win for everybody now.
No, but we're big fans of solar. The solar attic fan being one of them, but there's also solar skylights, the solar blinds, the solar venting skylights. All of that is applicable for the 30% tax credit. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it all falls under that Inflation Reduction Act, which is really cool.
You educated me.
Yeah.
You won. You educated me.
Well, now, why would you do a turbine instead of a solar attic fan? What is the difference between the two, as in output capacity? Is the turbine almost as good as the solar attic fan when it comes to output?
The solar attic fan, they're probably pretty equal.
Okay.
I can tell you with a power fan, if you replace a power fan with a 14-inch turbine, they're the same opening. The same 14-inch opening, same air movement, everything, just no electric involved. The power fan is going to be right there with it because they're pretty equal in output.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So I always, it's just one of those things, with me, I'll talk to, you guys are very apt in solar. We don't deal with, I don't deal with a ton of, call them super solar contractors. So it usually becomes a price point thing. So, they can buy our power fan for whatever it may be, under $200, $180, $190, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Or you can get a turbine for 40% less than that. And they don't need to run any electric to it. So it's usually one of those the scenarios where guys are, it's a hip roof where I'll just throw a ridge vent on there. Well, it doesn't work. Well, I don't want to spend money on a power fan. I don't want to get an electrician on it. Well, here's an option. It's flashes like any other vent on the roof. It's flashes like a pipe collar. Mm-hmm. It's easy for them to install, and they like the idea of having the forever warranty. There's nothing that's going to go wrong. Mm-hmm. That's where mechanical, you can have anything, power, motor, inverter, whatever, go bad.
Exactly. So, maintenance down the road. So what is let's see here. How does insulation impact ventilation, and how does that component come into play in the attic, the overall health of the attic?
Well, if ventilation is not done properly and you don't eliminate the heat and moisture, then that moisture gets held into the insulation. Mm-hmm. And then we all know once the insulation gets wet, you're losing your R value. It's useless at that point. Now, we are starting to have more conversations about the different types of insulation. People want to close foam, spray foam the decks, and that's something I was, talking with you guys today. That's something that I'm looking to dig into a little bit further because, I know they are going to make it a conditioned living space at that point, but you're still going to have that sun that's beating down on that roof every day on those shingles. That's got to be cooled, or, the shingles going to have their longevity.
Yeah.
And that's something I need to look into, is start working with some of my shingle manufacturers and see how their warranties cover that. I don't know that, but I do know if we're spray foaming all of that, the roof's not going to breathe. You're not going to have that intake at the lowest part of the roof and exhausting through the peak unless you have some type of air gap between that roof, the shingle deck, and that insulation. So that's a learning. That's something that I need to learn about. It's definitely something that anybody should look into. I told them today that's something I need to dig into a little bit further. And my first thing I would always say is to reach out to whatever manufacturer they're installing. Talk to that shingle manufacturer, see if there's anything that needs to be done. Was it going to change a warranty? Because that spray foam insulation can change how things are done. Insulation as anything, like we talked about today. You have a lot of times where a company will come in, insulation company will come into the home and insulate the home. Well, if they don't do it properly, you could have a perfect roof with proper exhaust and proper intake. And then you have an insulation company that knows nothing about ventilation that comes in there with an attic cat or whatever and starts spraying insulation, and covers up that intake. Then they've ruined the roof at that point. So it's difficult. When you go out to look at a roof, there's a lot of parts and pieces to look at because, let's face it, in the end, if we get the job, they're not going to remember who was there before us. They're going to remember us because our yard sign was there, our truck was in the driveway, and more importantly, they wrote the check to us. So we're the one that's stuck with it. We own it at that point. So there's lots of little parts and pieces that need to be looked at in the whole system.
Cool. Yeah, the thing I want to talk about with insulation is how it separates the conditioned space from the unconditioned space, and then how that impacts, in the winter when you're warming your conditioned space, and as long as you have sufficient insulation between the heated house and the cooled attic, that that transfer of heat will be reduced, so it won't have as big of an impact as 75-degree
attic space
heat up there hitting 30-degree attic. All of a sudden, boom, warm temperature, cool temperature.
Not as much issue with thermal shock and
moisture all of a sudden bursts in the attic, and it's like, now we got to ventilate it out. So I think insulation plus ventilation are equally as important when we're looking into the attics. And we're trying to make sure that, hey, what's the overall health condition of this attic? Is it healthy? Is it ventilated properly? Is it insulated properly? Again, equally important when it comes to moisture and issues in the attic.
It's interesting to think about that with that, because for ventilation, the IRC and IBC codes are the 300 rule. For every 300 square foot of attic space you have, you need to have 1 square foot of ventilation. And that needs to be split in half because half is going to be exhaust and half is going to be intake. So how does that come into play with a conditioned living area up there? If you've got a 40 by 30 attic floor space that now becomes a conditioned living area.
Yeah.
Now you have, you'll have that sealed conditioned area around there and that airspace on the outside between that and the roof deck.
Well, that's the rafter bay, right?
Yep.
The rafters that are, probably 6 inches, 8 inches at most, right? So then how do you cram enough insulation in that 8-inch cavity plus have a baffle to allow air to go from the intake to the exhaust?
Because you're looking for inch and a half air gap.
Yeah, it's a huge, cathedral ceilings are a huge issue with ventilation. And we've seen, sweaty ceiling occur in people's houses where it'll be middle of summer and you look up at the ceiling and it looks like it's just sweating. It'll just be a dark streak going down the ceiling, and it's like, what's happening? It's not raining outside. What's going on? We've had that situation where we've had to go back and we've had to properly ventilate and or insulate the area so that that moisture issue doesn't continue to occur.
Yeah, because you're going to get moisture in the home, just by living in the home. 3 gallons, 4 gallons of moisture, about 3 gallons of moisture a day, just from a family of 4 living in there.
It's unbelievable.
So if that, we're sitting here, as we're talking and breathing, any moisture is going to go up, into the attic space here. Well, if everything is sealed and conditioned,
which it is, it's pretty humid in here. We've been talking a lot, and it's sealed up pretty good in Camino's office here. It's humid.
But that moisture gets into the attic space. It's got to be eliminated, because if you're holding any moisture and any heat in the attic, that's where we're going to start seeing the mold and mildew and those the effects that we don't want to see up there. What we're trying to eliminate with ventilation. So, the sealed attic space is it's definitely something. It's a moving target right now. I mean, to understand it, make sure it's done properly. Um, years ago, you used to see that vented, and it's still out there. I don't know how much it's used now, but there was that vented nail board for scenarios like that. It was a piece of plywood with vertical furring strips on the sheet, and then a polyiso sheet, 4x8 sheet that was glued to the bottom of it. So you had that insulated board, but you had an air gap.
Allow air to get
To
through.
let air get through it. And as it's expensive, you're not gonna go out and do a re-roof with something like that. So the insulation side of it is it's a moving. I won't say moving target. Right? It's a learning curve. Trying to figure out and what it's really doing is it's for companies like yourself. It's something that we've got to understand when we're out there looking at these different jobs. Because like you said, if we get the job, we own it when we leave.
Yeah. And you guys focus mainly on asphalt shingles with your ventilation products. Is that accurate?
In this market, I do.
Okay.
We have tile products for out west, ceramic tile. There's actually we have a new product that's going to be released. It's pretty much for that west market for tiles as well. In this, we do anything to get heat and moisture out of the attics. We have everything from the deck air intakes to ridge vents to box vents, power fans, gable vents, and then we have tile power fans and anything for any type of tile roof. The only thing that we don't have, I don't want to say we don't have, but I always get a question asked for metal roofs.
Say standing seam metal. What do you do in
That's
that?
that. We were just we just had our national sales meeting, and that was one of the conversations that us area market managers brought up. It's just so difficult because there's so many different manufacturers of standing seam, different profiles and things like that. If you're not using a power fan or building a curb and using some type of box or power, then we've got to find a way to do it at the ridge. Well, if you're doing at the ridge, you got all those different profiles. It's very difficult to find something that's going to fit the majority of it, whether it's a standing seam, is it a 1-inch seam, is it an 1.25 seam, is it 5V crimp, whatever, mastery, whatever it may be. But I will tell you, I get that question a lot. I deal with a log home builder up in the just north of Harrisburg market, and did a training for him, and he had a callback on the job that he did 20 years ago, had never had an issue with icing in the attic. Icing, and he was having an issue. And what it wound up being is, the metal roof that he uses got a metal cap, and then it's got the vented Z closures. So it's pretty much like a piece of aluminum ridge vent. Well, because it doesn't have the external baffles to create that Bernoulli effect, over the years, those metal grooves have gotten plugged up with dust, dirt, and debris. So now the roof isn't ventilating. So he's got all that additional moisture in there that's now freezing when it gets cold outside. So, short of him replacing those vented Z closures, get there, pulling that metal cap off, and there's nothing, maybe you take a brush and try to clean them out. I don't know. But there's definitely a market there for some type of vent at ridge vent for the metal market. It's figuring it out, figuring how to get to it. There's lots of moving parts and pieces there. So I'm sure they'll come to it. But as far as anything, like something new coming out, we do have a new tile product that we'll be releasing here shortly.
Cool.
I probably won't get to see it. I mean, I can sell it, of course, but we just don't have much.
You don't have much
terracotta tile work in this market. It'd be all out west. But
nice.
It's a big thing that a lot of our guys have been looking for. So it's going to be huge for us.
What about ice dams? How does ventilation impact ice dams?
I get that question a lot, especially when we talk about the intake products, the deck air products going on edge. If a roof is ventilated properly, shouldn't have an issue with ice damming, because if a roof has got proper exhaust and proper intake, that temperature is only going to be about 10 degrees, 15 degrees off ambient. So you should never have much problems with ice damming. We really run into ice damming issues if you have it off edge or on edge, and then the roof is not insulated or ventilated properly, and you got all that additional heat right at the bearing wall. So you got everything below that's going to freeze, and it's going to try to melt everything above it. Therefore, it creates that ice damming up above. I have had, we actually had a call on one of my competitors' products for the intake, and we wound up replacing with our deck air product, and they got rid of all the ice damming because now the roof was able to breathe completely. So you had that very minimal differential between ambient temperature, and there was no ice damming. Now, just like with anything, if you're using like our deck air product, you're going to ice and water. down on the bottom, just like you would anywhere. So we're going to ice and water below the cut we make, and then install the product, and then ice and water over top of it. So you have everything covered at the hole at that time. And have had, knock on wood, I've had no issues. If the roof is ventilated properly, ice damming should not be an issue.
What about fully adhering the entire underlayment of the roof? Is that ever an issue with ventilation? No?
Not that I've run to or anybody's ever brought to me. I know there's some manufacturers that don't care for that. Not ventilation manufacturers, just shingle manufacturers in their cells. But, with ventilation, yes, what's on the outside of the roof is probably the least of concern. What we want to make sure is happening is make sure there's a spot for an intake for air to get in at the lowest part of the roof. So you want that cool, dry air coming to the lowest part of the roof, and then an opening and a proper exhaust vent to get that heat at the highest part, that heat and moisture pulled out at the highest part. As far as the substrate, what metal or shingles being used on the roof, that really doesn't affect us as much.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. Yeah, because we're fully adhering a lot of roofs that are, especially 412 or low slope. Yeah. And I always wonder, are we locking this in too tight? Are we making like a Ziploc bag effect with this particular part of the roof where it's just going to create moisture inside the attic because we've sealed everything up super tight?
Yeah, as long as you have that intake and exhaust, and the intake is always going to be the lowest part of the roof, exhaust is the highest part of the roof, and depending on the pitch, if you like using my 4-foot stuff, that can go down to a 212. We warrant that down to a 212. So that's got an external baffle on it. It's going to be able to create that Bernoulli effect, that negative pressure vacuum, if you will, to pull the heat and moisture out of there. At that point, you're going to be pulling the air in at the lowest part and pulling it out at the highest part. So it's going to have that constant circulation to remove that heat and moisture about every 6 minutes.
And what's the Bernoulli effect?
So the Bernoulli effect's created by a ridge vent that has a solid front edge, or a part that's exposed, sticks out over the edge of the shingles once the caps are installed. And what that solid edge does is when the wind, if this is the solid edge, when the wind blows up the roof deck, it's going to hit that front solid edge. It's going to be forced up, and then it creates a spinning effect over top of the vent. That's the Bernoulli effect. It's the same principle that keeps an airplane in flight. So that Bernoulli effect essentially is a vacuum. That vacuum at the ridge vent created by that external baffle working with your intake is how you're going to pull that cold, dry air in the lowest part and exhausting it through the peak. If you think about it, pretty much as a vacuum on the top, intake on the bottom, continually turning that attic airspace and pulling the heat and moisture out of the peak. It's all created by that solid front edge, the external baffle, if you will.
Nice.
It's the most important part of any ventilation. You probably heard me say that a number of times today.
Yep.
I tell everybody, if you don't have an external baffle, you're causing more of an issue than you're solving.
Yep.
So it's very important.
Definitely want to drive this home as well. This is something I see time and time again when I go into an attic. I see the ductwork from the bath fan that's in a bathroom, typically ventilating moisture out of it, not just a powder room, right?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a big deal. The fart fan.
Yeah, fart fan. Exactly.
But if it's ventilating a bathroom that has moisture with a shower or bathtub in it, then it's super important to make sure that goes through the attic, through the roof, to the outside.
Absolutely.
I see it just time and time again, dumped into the soffit, tucked up underneath the ridge caps, tucked up at the end of the gable vent, if there is a gable vent, and stuff like that. Like, why in the world did people think that was a great idea? And, you guys make products that you can actually solve that problem for, right?
Again, that's the education side of it. Just not knowing. They think we're running this tube from the vent all the way to the soffit, so it's just going to go outside. We don't have to worry about it. Or we're running, like you said, to a gable. We don't have to worry about it. But that moisture is going to get pulled back in. It needs to be run to the deck, through the roof, and out. Mm-hmm. So a number of different ways to do it. We have for bathroom fans, we have two. Our main one, and pretty much the bread and butter, is our BRV 3.4, which is a bathroom vent that hooks on the roof. It's a jack that sits on the roof, got a collar and flex pipe that hook to it. So you're going to hook that directly into your fan. Whatever plumbing piping you have come out of there, and that's going to dump. It's got a one-way flapper in it. That's going to dump all that moisture right out of the roof, out of the attic onto the roof. Another way you can do it is we have a EVA combo kit. So what this is it's kind of like it's a 730, which is a 750, but just a little smaller, and it's got a one-way breather attachment you can hook to the bottom. So now you have this collar that will fit a 3 or 4 inch hose, and you can run it right to that. So now you can dump that bathroom fan right into a bottom of a 730, and then it exits that way.
Nice.
But the biggest ones that we sell are the 3-4, and then the KV68, which is a 6 and 8 inch for kitchen fans.
Okay. And do these have dampers on them?
Yep, all of them have
dampers.
one-way dampers. Yep.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, because funny, back in the day, we installed a 750 vent without a damper to ventilate a stove. Terrible idea. No damper. So when the homeowner turned on the stove or the vent, the pot of boiling water, ventilate that all out of the house. It went up. It formed condensation on the underside of the 750 vent.
Rain back
and
down.
when it stopped blowing, so it was keeping the moisture out of the vent, all of a sudden it just started dripping down on their stovetop. They called us on a bright sunny day and said, "Hey, I have a leak." And we're like, "No way. It's not raining out." And they're like, "No, like there's water on my stove." And
it was the condensation from the
It was the condensation from the
they all have one-way dampers in them. And our BRVs or bathroom vents, they have the metal mesh on the outside to keep any birds from anything from climbing up in there as well. We sell those in just the jack, and we also manufacture those as the kit, which has the jack, the connecting collar, and the flexible pipe. And we also sell just that connecting collar, because some guys will get out there and if the roof's done properly, then you've already got the piping and everything there. But when they tear it off, they damage that collar. Mm-hmm. So now you can just go back with the jack that you have and the attaching collar and move on. But that's actually that's one of those products that. We brought that product into our envelope right around COVID, so 2020 timeframe. That's a newer product for us. So it's one of the things that, being out talking to people, it's one of the things we build relationships with contractors like yourself and distributors. They're going to ask us for stuff. People buy from people. Mm-hmm. And that's just one of those things that we get asked for and we bring it back to the Beldens, the owners, and it makes sense. And they made it happen. So it's that's probably the newest product that we have.
I have a request. Do you guys do any vents for PVC, like plumbing pipes going out of the roof?
No.
That's
the one that I get asked. I get asked for not just something with a PVC or a wettable flange on it, but like a Portals Plus AB1, AB2, one-way and two-way breathers, like a spun bullet shaped vent. I get asked for those as well, and it kind of parlays into the goosenecks.
Yeah, exactly. The candy canes, some people call them, or the mushroom tops. So I had an issue at my house when we were doing the siding on the back wall, and there was actually a screw through the siding, through a vent pipe, a 3-inch vent pipe behind the wall, which I know shouldn't have happened to begin with, but it did. And that pipe went all the way up through the roof, and rainwater has just been accumulating in that pipe over years, over a decade, and has just been backing up that pipe all the way up to the roof. So when they pulled out the screw, there was water shooting out of the pipe. Yep. The crew that was there called me, and I was out of town at the time, said, "Hey, how do we shut off the water?" I'm like, "What do you mean shut off the water?" They're like, "There's water pouring out of a pipe." No. I think we hit a water line. So they turned off the water. It was still coming out. And long story short, it was just because the vent pipe was clogged with water. We're trying to think, now I have to block off the top of the vent pipe, but still allow air to get out so the plumbing can function properly. So we ended up getting these mushroom caps because I didn't want the candy canes, right? Just doing the 180 degree elbow, right? And just, looks like a big old candy cane. You should paint it as such. But we did these other tops on the pipes, and they look like mushroom tops. So instead of painting them black, we actually painted them red and white, like the Super Mario mushrooms, the power-ups. So they're on my roof right now, a little Easter egg on top of my roof. But
Kid's idea or your idea?
It was my idea, but the kids participated in it as well.
I was going to say, you should have done the candy canes. I look for your Christmas tree every year.
It's true. And there they are, just on there all the time. Yeah. But no, I would love to have, a product from you guys for that situation, because we would probably make that default when we do roof replacements, because we don't know where that vent's going, how properly it's sealed. We just know that it's open and exposed on the top of the roof. We know that rainwater's getting in it, and hopefully all the connections are sealed tight.
For any pitched roof, or not flat work, just pitched roof for it.
Yeah. It'd be great to have some sort of topper so that it allows air to get out to ventilate the plumbing, but then it doesn't allow water to get in. So that's the solution we're looking for.
That's a good idea, because there's nothing really on the market for those other than those mushroom caps.
Those mushroom caps that we found online, which again, I mean, I made fun of it because,
Yeah.
we painted them like mushrooms, but yeah, they look like mushrooms. I don't know
Yeah.
how happy people would be, having mushrooms on the top and the candy canes. I don't know how happy people are with candy canes up top
Yeah.
there either. So either solution to me is not great right now, unless you're willing to have a candy cane or a mushroom top.
Yeah.
So maybe Lomanco could come out with something different for that
It's definitely something I'll
ventilation.
look into. I can run it up the chain for sure.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
there was actually, I just ran into something the other week that somebody sent me a picture looking for a turbine, like one of our whirlybirds,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't remember if it was either a 6 or 8 inch.
Huh?
And I made the joke. I'm like, what are you looking for? Something for your desk?
Yeah.
Just expand like a fidget tool. But come to find out, there's a company that makes them, and they're for the vent. It's a vent cap for a radon pipe.
Huh.
So it's like a 6 or 8 inch, whatever the radon pipe is. And then it's like an 8. If it's a 6 inch pipe, it's an 8 inch turbine. Maybe it's a 10 inch turbine.
Oh, for the radon.
I've never
pipe.
seen anything like that before.
Huh.
I'm like, well, we make turbines every day. Don't know if we can make one that small.
And
So,
what with these turbines generated electricity?
wheels are spinning.
You got some stuff to take back to corporate here.
There's just learning every day. Seeing things every day.
Yep.
It's one of those things. It's weird. I don't know if it started with you or when you got in the industry, but I remember in early '92 when I started learning about shingles and colors of weatherwood and black. I remember riding down the road just looking at a roof. Oh, that's weatherwood. Oh, that's black. And I remember my mom or girlfriend at the time being, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that was a different time. I tell that story, and I also tell, when I first started, I remember getting the questions. Somebody call in and ask for shingles. How much is a 20-year shingle? $20. How much is 25-year? $25. That was square pricing, That's it's not happening anymore.
It used to be a lot simpler to price things out.
Yeah, it was easy back then, but it's always learning. We're back to always learning.
Well, maybe we can wrap up on like best jobs, worst jobs, any stories you can share around those types of scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to knowledge. The worst job I was ever on, there was 2 of them, but really the worst, I would guess, if I had to rate them, was just in the last 2 years. It was a job up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It was single slope, cathedral ceiling, contemporary. It's all contemporary, single slope, about 60 square. I think there was 5 different roof facets. So there was no ridge vent, just terminates at a wall. They did the roof, used one of my competitors' products. It was an intake product that was designed, and they used it as an intake, and they used it as an exhaust. And it was a complete roof failure. They had to replace the deck and everything. So, unfortunately, Barb, the lady that owned the house, her husband's in the latter stages of Lou Gehrig's. So she was very standoffish. So before they did the roof, I was probably on that roof myself, both with the contractor and by myself, no less than 5 or 6 times. Because Barb would have questions and we'd go out and look at it. So anyway, we wound up getting the job. Contractor uses my product, uses my deck air product for intake and exhaust. Barb was completely happy. Finished the job in like November. She calls me in like January. She goes, Jim, I've got an issue. Can you come out and take a look? I'm like, yeah, not a problem, Barb. What's the issue? And she goes, so I see some shiny stuff on my roof, and there's snow on my roof. So we go up and look at it. The shiny thing she was talking about was actually some of the slip tape off the shingles that were hanging off the one gable and after they cut the rake. Mm-hmm. So we told her about that, and she's like, yeah, well, look at my roof. There's snow all over it. I'm like, yeah, Barb, there's snow on your roof, but you can see your vents are open. She goes, yeah, but look at my neighbor's roof. And our neighbor's roof, there's no snow on our neighbor's roof. I'm like, Barb, you want snow on your roof. If your roof is ventilated properly, snow should not come off the roof until the sun melts it off the roof. She goes, but there's none on my neighbor's house. I'm like, well, it's probably because her roof isn't ventilated properly. She's got all her heat is radiating up to the attic space and it's melting the snow off. She's, you know what, Jim? That makes sense because she has a whole lot of heating oil delivered. Mm. So that was in November. We did the job. I think they did a job in like September. That was in November. In June, she calls me. She goes, Jim, I got a problem. What's the problem, Barb? She's like, I've got a leak. I've got water in a spot in my kitchen, and I've got cracking in 2 bedrooms, drywall cracking in 2 bedrooms. Okay, Barb, I'll come look. I just want to help this lady at this point. Jeff, the contractor, didn't go with me. We went out by myself. And I went out there and looked at, the leak was coming from nothing that the he did. Somebody else had done siding. They did vertical siding. Instead of using outside corners, they had J channel back to back, and there was nothing behind it. So you can look. I could look right between the J channel and see. So we called Jeff, the contractor. Another contractor came out and fixed it. Went in and started looking at the cracking. She had cracking in a master bedroom and a bedroom in the back, and it was actually because the roof is ventilating now. Is the moisture is drying out, so she had some drywall joint separation.
Oh, okay.
At that point, so then she freaked out. I'm like, Barbie, your roof is performing now. So now the only thing you do is just drywall repair. That's all it is. So that was the worst job. I just because the scenarios I don't know, but I went out on another one too. It was not far from here, in the Baltimore market, and had a contractor that invited me out. Wanted me to come out and check ventilation on his job before he wanted to keep it from going to litigation. Didn't use my product, but he'd been through one of my seminars, asked me to come out and look. So I go out and look at the job. Cookie cutter neighborhood. They're all like maybe 20 by 40 homes, single family homes, 1 story, up and over, no reverses. And he had another roll up there, a competitor's roll product up there. So we go in the attic. We're going inside to go in the attic. When we walk in, you see water spots all over the living room. So we start looking and get up in the attic. And as soon as you stick your head up in the attic, it's like you're in the rainforest. There was water dripping off the rafters and stuff. And I'm like, what am I going to, it's not my product. I'm just trying to help a contractor at this point. And we look through all this, and I hear the homeowner talking to the other sales guys with us about new furnace he had put in. And it just clicked. I said, can you show me where your furnace is? They took me down in the basement and showed me the furnace. And as we're talking, he goes, yeah, I had the furnace put in. And then when the roofers came out, they said I had an old metal chimney. They said I didn't need a chimney anymore. They could knock that down. Oh. That was where that furnace vented into. Oh. So he had that 6-inch gas furnace vent that was dumping right into the attic space. So again, trying to help a contractor, we got to leave. He goes, well, what do you think if I put your ridge vent up there and do your intake? I'm like, that's how it should be done. I said, but I got to be honest with him at this point. That needs a deck replacement, and you might have to replace more lumber than just the deck.
Yeah, for sure.
And because I even told him, I said, if a home inspector comes out and looks at this, you're going to be in a ton of trouble. But it's just one of those things. It's education. So he hired, had his laborer out there, sub or whatever, that said, oh yeah, we're redoing the roof. You don't need that chimney there anymore. And that was where the furnace went to.
Oh my God. So
for that year and a half, however long it was, all that moisture just being dumped right into the attic space.
Oh,
it just makes you think about how many of those different things that are out there. And it's education, because like we started with, it's education. It's knowing. It's, you might have heard me talk about it again today. I might have said it earlier already, but to properly vent a 25 or 30 square home, it's really only $200 material cost. Mm-hmm. Right around, give or take. Yeah. That $200 material cost to properly ventilate that home protects the whole. What's the home cost? $500,000, $600,000 now. Yeah. That protects that whole investment. Why skimp on $200 and take that $200 number and maybe make it a $180 number? It's knowledge. It's just understanding. That's one of the worst areas you can skimp is on ventilation and not understanding it. But on the flip side, if you understand it, in my opinion, it's one of the best selling tools you can have in the home. Being able to talk about it.
Well, thank you for dropping some knowledge bombs today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. You guys had a good day today. You got a very tentative team, and we can do this at any time. If you want to do another sales meeting with your guys, we can do another one.
Excellent. And where can people find you online and learn more about Lomanco?
Yep. The website is just lomanco.com, and I've got a digital business card that will give the links for my information and everything that we can attach at the end if you want.
Cool. Absolutely. We'll do that.
I appreciate it.
Thanks again, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for everything.
Cool, man. Well, thanks.
You sure your camera was working?
Yes. That was great.